Hey, you guys. So I wanted to come on here and talk about my thoughts and opinions on two different subjects. And I wanted to try and deviate from racial politics and the monotonous repetition that surrounds that topic and give you guys a respite by discussing relationships and the interactions that take place before, during, and after as they pertain to our community. But before I get into both of these topics, I do want to first start off with an apology. I'm so sorry, you guys, that I haven't been as active, but honestly, I've been researching and trying to see what other topics I could discuss subsequent to my last video. And in addition to that, I also have to say that this video is based purely on my thoughts and opinions. I'm not a relationship counselor, psychologist, or therapist or any variation. And I had to give that disclaimer so that no one tries to say that I'm dictating what anyone should do. I want to introduce you all to this amazing new sponsor, Ash Kickin. They are a black-owned health and beauty business that specializes in a multitude of potent and formidable products that will help enrich your skincare regimen. They take their time handcrafting some of the products so you know it's authentic and made with love and care. My personal favorites are the body butter and the African black soap. These both help to keep my skin clear and free of acne, and the best part is their health and beauty products are all natural. They also have hair care products unique and specific to our hair texture. Definitely make sure you guys check that out. The best part is every time I order from them, their shipping is fast and reliable, so make sure you guys check out Ash Kickin at www.ashkickin.com. Follow them on Instagram at ash.kickin. Like their page on Facebook. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at officialashkick and use my code ChrisMoore1 at checkout to get a discount on your skincare and health products. ashkickin.com. If your relationship is fine the way it is and there aren't any issues that you face with the person in your life, then what I'm about to say should not be applicable to you. Also, before I start, let me know any topics of subjects that you guys want me to discuss or talk about. I greatly appreciate you guys' feedback on what I should talk about, and it lets me know that you guys find my content to be potent and effective. So with that said, I do want to go ahead and get started on the first topic, which is the overwhelming amount of black male worship taking place in our community right now. I'm talking about insurmountable volumes of support and patronage for black men, and I want to provide two very recent examples to substantiate my statement. So, the first situation is obviously going to be with the whole Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez fiasco. Throughout the social media platforms, I saw numerous posts of black people discussing the incident when it first initially occurred, and a lot of them consisted of placing blame towards Megan, even without really knowing the full details of what happened before she brought it to light that Tory shot her. And all I kept seeing were comments like, she chose to place herself in that environment. Oh, she puts out the type of music that would subject her to this situation. All of these diatribes giving justification to why her predicament was her own doing. 100%. And I have to say that these comments in particular annoy me because of the fact that music itself should have no bearing on the protection of black women. And you guys already know this is a channel for black women advocacy. So, of course, my supposition is to give support behind them under any circumstance because other communities of people do this without reluctance. And a strange phenomenon seems to exist in our community where when it's a case involving a black woman, we turn into these detectives where we interrogate and come up with 50 questions to ascertain some flaw that may not even be there. And I also make mention that this type of response is problematic because it reflects poorly on our community collectively. It ties into the reason why black people are unsuccessful in unity because we have some black men running around with this narrative that black women are not deserving of protection due to their unwillingness to submit to them, when in reality it's not wise to submit to men with the lowest social status in society. And when Megan finally addressed this incident between her and Tory Lanez, I saw black people reacting in the same general way, which was to diminish her credibility entirely by saying she should have to the police with this information sooner. It's interesting that when it comes to the dynamic of black men protecting other races of women, this is done almost instinctively as if the action was encoded in their DNA to do so through means of domestication. And I made mention of this situation particularly because even though these are celebrities, it's not a condition specific to those in a higher socioeconomic tax bracket. It can happen to any of us. But the way we go about handling and processing situations in a manner that can create solutions is an issue. A pathology exists in our community where dysfunctional responses are given to these scenarios, and it only further complicates the already near broken foundation for Black people. And for me, I believe that it starts at a very young age. How many of you have ever had a young daughter come to you in confidence about a traumatizing experience? Your first instinct would be to believe her. And this is a nurturing quality that should be held throughout life, not just in the innocence of childhood. It's ridiculous that every time a Black woman goes through such a catastrophic circumstance, she not only has to worry about the scrutiny of society, but even in her own community, her men and some women too will berate and make disparaging remarks about how she should have done A, B, and C to avoid whatever conflict she went through. And in every instance, Black women are almost never allowed to undergo a period of vulnerability and sensitivity. I do want to shift to another topic because I feel as though it warrants a similar discussion. By now, I'm sure you all have been seeing the revelation made by Andrew Gilliam about coming out as bisexual. And for those not familiar with who Andrew Gilliam is, he was the former mayor of Tallahassee before attempting to run for governor of Florida back in 2018. He was a CNN political commentator for a while until this incident occurred with him being the target of a scandal where he was caught in the same hotel room with another man. And he took a brief hiatus from all social media platforms before resurging with this news. And my thoughts about this situation was to express sympathy for his wife and children. He has a very beautiful wife and children, and it has to be humiliating and embarrassing to have this come out to the world. And if he hasn't already, he's going to have to explain that to his children about this whole three-ring circus that he was entangled in. And I make no judgments about a person's sexuality by any means, but something about Andrew Gilliam's mannerisms kind of gave me the impression that he was somewhat questionable. And the reason I say that is because I was really inspired by him. I thought it was amazing that you have a Black man with a beautiful Black family have such a prestigious political presence and sense of Black identity be able to take charge in such a white patriarchal environment. But when I noticed small things in his interviews, like his hand gestures, at first I just dismissed it because I know that's not the case with everyone, and it could have been coincidental, but as time went on, it became more apparent to me that his disposition and stature were uncertain. This is what irks me about this situation. Again, it's more of the same. Black people talking about, oh, she knew about it, why is it an issue? The reasonings we come up with to never give Black women the benefit of the doubt end in such a subconscious manner is both debilitating and irritating. One thing I pride myself on is being race loyal, which means that I will believe the word of a Black person over any other race because I understand that our people historically have suffered greatly from subjection to falsehoods. Let's even just go with the fact that yes, Andrew's wife knew about his sexuality. The accountability of this scenario still falls on Andrew to be forthcoming and open about his sexuality so his wife understands clearly that he harbors two different attractions because I'm almost sure that even if she did know, she didn't see this coming. This instance was of macroscopic proportions, and at the end of the day, Andrew was still unfaithful to his wife, and in no way should his philandering ways followed by this revelation of his sexuality act as an exemption to absolve him of responsibility. And that's what Black male worship is ultimately. Some type of extenuating rationale always seems to alleviate Black men of their involvement in an unfavorable situation, leaving them devoid of accountability. And I want to call this out specifically because it becomes redundant and tedious having to witness our brothers get away with behaviors and never having to face the consequences of our actions as if somehow we're above reproach when humility is truly the best teacher. And despite how inspirational Andrew's career and accolades are, I can't let that cloud my judgment of harboring contempt towards him for this behavior, which to me was deliberate and intentional. No one slips and falls into the bed of another person, so really the fact that explanations and dissertations are left all over these social spaces speaks volumes, but it all leads back to the prominent and problematic Black male worship in our community. We do the same thing with people like Little Boozy, Nick Cannon, and others like them, and no matter the walk of life, somehow Black men almost always are never held accountable for their actions, according to the thoughts and opinions of our people. But I want to move on to my last topic, which talks about Black women and hypergamy. And I feel as though this conversation is the most important because it never comes from a Black man. But when it does, it's some nonsensical rhetoric about why Black women shouldn't date hypergamously. I had a conversation with one of my Black female subscribers, and she brought up some very interesting points that I wanted to highlight in this video. Black women, unfortunately, are plagued with the tired and cliche concept of being the ride or die. the typical hold a man down or even have his back no matter what. These talking points present major concerns for several reasons. One of them being that Black women may have to place themselves on the front line for a man that may not reciprocate that same level of effort. And my subscriber told me how her sister's credit was ruined because of the amount of overspending that her boyfriend was doing with her credit cards. She had a decent credit score of 730, and after the short year of dating him, her credit score was 540. In that same relationship, she also described how the Black man did very little to help her out when it came to financially providing her simple things, like if the light bill was $150. He couldn't even come up with that because apparently he had other obligations that prevented him from helping her in key areas. And this situation actually made me upset listening to it because I have a friend whose sister was helping out a man. And I immediately asked my friend if this man was helping his sister out in return because I think mutual exchange is important in relationships. I preach about reciprocity because largely in our community, this element seems to be absent in our relationships, or the love factor is unrequited, meaning that one party gives and gives while the other party does nothing or is parasitic in nature. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in biology, there's a concept called symbiosis, and it has three categories that it breaks down to. These three are mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Typically, the symbiotic relationship we all try and strive for is mutual, which is where both organisms benefit from a relationship. And I feel like the majority of our community falls more so in the other two categories. Commensalism is when one party benefits, but the other party is not harmed, nor is there any benefit. And parasitism is when one organism benefits at the expense of the other organism. It's strange how humans and animals display similarities in relationships, but when you look at it from a comparative perspective, the Black community's relationships are largely parasitic, in which Black women are the driving force in relationships while Black men would act as the parasite. Now, again, if the scenario I'm describing doesn't apply to you, then you shouldn't be offended by what I'm saying, but if you feel triggered and offended, then this probably pertains to you. So you can go ahead and put a thumbs down, but thanks for the view. And Black women, like any other race of women, date men strategically to see who can afford them resources to thrive and flourish in a loving environment that she can help nurture. But she can't do that if she assumes the role meant for a man to fulfill because it obviously becomes too much. I think what we need to work on as a community is debunking that gold digger stereotype because essentially what Black women look for is no different than what other women seek, which is financial stability and security. And yes, love is something that should always be present because if love isn't there, it can give way to toxic hypergamy. And toxic hypergamy refers to dating a man with financial efficacy, but he does not embody the characteristics of a suitable mate in terms of things like commitment, honesty, and trust. The Futures who have kids everywhere, the Lamar Odoms who have been around the Kardashians and have a tumultuous past filled with drugs, these are the types to obviously avoid because even though they have money, their principles and morals are beyond salvage. And while we're on the topic, I also want to say this. We need to stop telling the world that these men just need a Black woman in their life. I saw that BS with Kanye West. Why would we want to just throw a Black woman into that situation? These men are ruptured, fractured, and broken beyond repair. And if we value Black women the way we say we do, then we should want the best for them. And these men are not it. We have to teach our young girls that they should be with a man that is able to provide for them, love them, be committed to them, and protect them. But even before all of that, we should be teaching them that they should love and cherish themselves first and foremost. No longer should we be teaching our little Black girls that they need to hold a man down or be his ride or die. Let's try and eliminate this pathology from the source by teaching them the true meaning of value, which is that they should be held to the highest regard and be treated with love, care, and respect. Again, I'm not a relationship expert. I'm speaking from experiences told by other people in hopes that maybe some of this video could prove to be beneficial to you. And one final thing before I close this out, Black women, don't ever think you have to settle. You are worth so much more than settling, and don't let anyone tell you different. You are deserving of the world and all of its resources. You are the most intelligent, elegant, and beautiful group of women on this planet. Having standards doesn't make you bougie or any of that BS. It just means you have requirements for dating you, and this is something we should normalize. But those are my thoughts on these discussions. Let me know if you guys like these videos. Again, I wanted to try and take just a small break from the videos talking about racial politics because I know it can be a lot. And relationships are yet another area we do need some major improvement in, so I'm happy to discuss these if you guys want to at least give my thoughts on them. But in the meantime, thank you for your continued support. Like, subscribe, share, weigh in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in my next video.